What's up guys, PJ here from 3D Printing Canada. So today in front of me I have an Ender 5 Plus we're going to build for you guys on camera, as well as install a Micro Swiss all-metal Hotend. In my opinion, this is almost a must on any Creality printer if you just want that ease of use and not to get jams as often and things like that where the Bowden tube lifts away from the nozzle. So let's get to that build video, guys. All right, so now that I've taken everything out of the box, didn't want to bore you with the unboxing video. There's so many of them out there. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all our uprights. Now what you wanna do is you wanna make sure, see the holes there? So we've got some holes, some threaded holes. You wanna make sure those are always facing the right way. So they need to be at the top, not the bottom. So make sure you do that. And the only thing I do is I take these, they're M5x25s. So this is what's gonna put all this together. So we'll go ahead and we'll pour a bunch of these out here. And then all I do is I hang it over the table a little bit, get my Allen wrench on here. Just kind of get it started. So now we'll just repeat this process on all four corners. All right, so the next step here is we're gonna take the upper gantry and carefully place it on top here. And once you get it on top, just kind of line everything up because you're about to screw the M5x25 to lock the carriage together here. Okay, so we'll take some more M5x25s. There's one that goes in the top. Make sure we're lined up there. I just like to get them all started at first. You got one on the top and one on the side. So once you've got everything kind of threaded into place, just go ahead and tighten everything down. All right guys, so the next step here, we're gonna put the Z gantry uprights in. Just be careful doing this, make sure you get them in the right way. All right. What you wanna do here is take the M5x30 screws now. And just down here in the bottom corner, you can see there's a hole that you've got to line up with the screw hole and thread in. So I'm just going to snug this one up. In the back corner here, there's another one you got to go ahead and thread in. And then I'll go ahead and I'll take one in this upper corner and one then in the bottom corner, thread them in. Then you want to repeat that on the next side. Okay, so the next step, we're going to install the hotbed plate here. Really easy. Just slide it in here. Now what I'll do is I'll lower this one a little, kind of get it level so the screws go in nice and easy. Then we go ahead and we take our M4x10 with a 2.5 driver. And you just go ahead, and there's a couple screw holes right here. Just line them up. Thread them down. And then just repeat this process to all four corners. And your hot plate will be installed. It's 2 screws per side. All right, without further ado, let's get to this Micro Swiss installation. So you're gonna want a 2mm Allen wrench or hex driver, as I prefer to use. We're gonna go ahead, it's just 2 screws to take this fan shroud off, really easy. Now you can follow this procedure for an Ender 3, anything that has this same fan shroud or same Hotend, if you wanted to install a Micro Swiss Hotend in there. So I'll go ahead I like to just kind of sneak this stuff off to the side temporarily. Now we just moved all that stuff out of the way, released the zip tie here that was kind of causing things to be strained up. And then I'll go ahead and I'm gonna take my 10 mil wrench. This is the first thing I like to do because Creality isn't known for seating these tubes in really well, so I'm not gonna actually have to probably heat it up to get it out. So I'll just go ahead and loosen off this all the way. So we'll go ahead and thread the push fitting. And look at that, it came right off. As you can tell, it hasn't been heat seated correctly to the nozzle because it's still nice and white. So that's another reason why I like to put Micro Swiss all metal hot ends on any machine that's running a Bowden tube directly to the nozzle. So go ahead and take that out. Next step I like to do here, so we're gonna lower the bed a little. Just give myself a little bit more room to work. I'm gonna take this hot end right off. That way it's easy to take all the components we're gonna reuse out. Thermistor and heater cartridge. The nice thing is now too, Micro Swiss has come out with a new higher temperature heat block that you can use a glass bead in or a cartridge. And that'll fit on the stock Micro Swiss Hotend as well. So if you'd like to use a different thermistor, PT100 or something with a higher temperature heat block, they make one now, which I found very convenient. All right, next we take a 1.5 driver. And I don't take this all the way out. I just loosen it a bit so the heater cartridge is freed up. Never over tighten these either, if you're ever replacing stock stuff. If you over tighten them, you can damage the heater cartridge. And before I take that out, I go ahead and take out that Phillips head screw there, all the way. And then they just pop right out. Now you have your hot end disassembled out of the printer. We won't be using that anymore. These parts really become obsolete. So if you have a friend that still runs something stock, you could go ahead and give it to them, sell it to them. But once you got a Micro Swiss, you'll never use any of that stuff again. So the next step I like to do here is we'll open up this Micro Swiss. They give you an instruction manual that's online. Get your little heat block, heat sink and heat break. You get a nozzle. There's the heat sink and heat break all in one package. You get the tools here. I never recommend using that soft steel tool. It is nice that you have it just in case you don't have a tool, but I prefer to use a nice 7 mil wrench on there. And then next you get your heater block. And silicone sock. We'll move this out of the way. And what I like to do is I like to get my nozzle and my heat break. So we got a nozzle out of the package here. And we got our heat break and heat sink in one. And we will go ahead and separate those off. Take your heat break out of your heat sink, the heat sink aside. Now, this is important. The screws face the nozzle. With the head, the heat break threaded in. The nozzle, thread that in as well. And then what I'll do right off the hop is I'll grab my adjustable wrench here. And a 7 mil wrench. Go ahead and give that a little tighten. Like I said, I prefer to use good steel as opposed to soft steel. It is nice that Micro Swiss provides that, but in my experience, they just strip. Go ahead and give that an extra little tighten. Now that we've got all that out, I go ahead here. We've got enough cabling, so I might as well bring it right up front for you guys to see. Go ahead and slide the heat break in. It's your thermistor. Because of the Captain tape there, it's all still in the same position. Take your 1.5, tighten that down. Now don't over tighten it, just needs to be secure. Then take your Phillips and the screw provided. Now, this is key. When you tighten down your thermistor wire, if you over tighten it, you're gonna cause the wire inside to break, and then you will not have heat anymore because your thermistor is now broken. So when you put these in, you don't need to over tighten them by any means. Once it's there, it's secure. I'm not gonna keep tightening down on that because I'll break the thermistor. All right, next, what we gotta do is we're gonna turn on the printer. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna heat tighten this while everything's out. That way you don't ever take a chance of bending your heat break. Again, in some other videos I've explained this. Always take, to change the nozzle, it's just much easier. You take your fan shroud off, you go ahead and you loosen that set screw, and you pop your whole block and assembly out of the heat sink. That way, when you're heat tightening and you've got that wrench on there, you don't ever risk bending that heat break in the center there. So that's just the way I do it. You can do it however you want. My advice is to do it that way. That way you get longevity out of your equipment. All right, so we're gonna plug this in and get her fired up. All right, guys, so you wanna go ahead and preheat your printer to 260 because that's the max temperature. In the meanwhile, we're waiting for it to heat up, speed the process along a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the last baggie here. I'll go ahead and I'll take this heat sink here. We'll slide this out of the way and move the gantry up so you guys can get a little closer up look of it. I'll pop one screw through here. And if you see a little bit of smoke in the video, that's just the first time the hot end's heating up, so it's cooking off any machine oil from the machining that might be on it still. Smells yummy. So I'm just prepping, so once that's heat tightened, I can just go ahead and pop everything in. Then you take your little set screw here. It's very tiny, the 1.5 driver. And I will go ahead and I'll just get this started. Not all the way, just a little bit in there. All right, and we're up to temperature now, so I'm gonna go ahead and take my 7mm wrench and my adjustable wrench. Now this is extremely important, guys, that you do this. Now, putting on an adjustable wrench onto an aluminum block is gonna drop the temperature very quick. If it goes below 10 degrees, it'll thermal run away. Don't worry about it, there's nothing wrong with your printer. It's just going into a safe mode. So I like to just get it on there quick, and that's it. Just that extra little tighten is all it needs. You go too much, you could snap the nozzle off. Now she's heat tightened, go ahead and shut that machine off so it's cool enough to install into the heatsink. Now, because I do this daily, I will hold this, take my 7mm wrench. Now I recommend that you guys let it cool down, but I mean, I do this every day, so I'm actually just gonna go ahead and hold my wrench there. If you don't do this quick enough, that wrench will start getting hot and then you burn your fingers, so. Now be very careful. You tighten that set screw, you just snug it up. We don't want that over tight. We also, this is another reason why you always change your nozzles by removing the set screw and dropping the block. Reason being is, if you're holding on to this with an adjustable wrench at a weird angle and you're in there, not only could you bend that thin part of the heat break, you could have this spinning inside there. So my rule of thumb is take the set screw out, drop it, change your nozzle that way. Don't forget to follow the heat seat procedure. So the next thing I'll do here is I'll slip on the silicone sock. Okay, it's still hot, so be careful if you're doing it hot. Again, I do not recommend it at all for anybody to just install that while it's hot. If you're like me, you'll burn yourself every once in a while. We'll leave that up to you guys how you do it, but I do not recommend it. All right, the next step's pretty simple. We're just gonna take this Bowden tube here and we're going to install it into the top of the heatsink. Make sure it's pushed down in there good. We put our C-clip in. And the next step is relatively easy here. We'll just go ahead and reinstall our fan shroud. One of the easiest upgrades to do to any of the Creality printers. As you can see, it doesn't take long at all. And if you're not worried about grabbing a wrench and taking things apart, it's really easy to do. So we'll go ahead and get the first screw started here. Now I don't over tighten this just in case I've got to move around in place here and find the hole there a little bit better. So I'll do one at a time and just leave it a little looser and then tighten down after. So I'll actually have to move the gantry back to get my wrench in there. There's just one more screw that needs to go in here. I'll go ahead and thread that in. And before I tighten, I just take a little look to make sure everything's square and then tighten down. There we go. And one more. And now we have our Micro Swiss all-metal Hotend installed onto our Ender 5 Plus. All right, so before we do all the cable managing, we're just gonna go ahead and install the spool holder. Really easy, just make sure those T-nuts spin inside there. And we're good. Take the spool holder and tighten her down. Now the next thing I do here is I take the little C-clip provided in the kit and install it into the push fitting on the extruder. So we'll tip the printer up a little bit here. So you've got the push fitting here on the extruder. Drop your Bowden tube in. Go ahead and put that C-clip in. And then that's the first step. Now what I like to do is move the head of the printer all the way to the front and then to its furthest position. And what I do here is I grab a nice big zip tie. And some people might do it other ways, but I find this is the best way to keep this cabling all neat and out of the way, not rubbing on the rods or anything. So just as long as you've got it extended as far as it can go, and you got that zip tied, you don't have to worry about it rubbing against anything. And then I'll just go ahead and take my cutters, cut that extra bit of zip tie off. Now, what I like to do is kind of get everything figured out. So we've got our bed here, wiring. So I'll take that and kind of move it aside here. Get my bed thermistor and get it out of the way of all the other wiring. I'll go ahead and install those two. Your XT90 connection. Plug that in. And then what I'll do is all the motor wires I'll do last. And we'll go ahead and we'll take our heater cartridge, plug it in, our nozzle thermistor, plug it in, our BL touch cable, go ahead and plug that in as well. And then everything's color coordinated, so it's really hard to mess this one up. Just go ahead and plug in your other two fans. Now that's done and out of the way. Now the next step I like to do is I will cable manage these right along here. Now they give you these provided clips. I only need one for the tubing. This one can be a little bit of a pain to pop in, but it works. So we'll go ahead and we'll install that there. And I just like to, kind of got to give it a little push to get it into the extrusion, but it will go in like so. That's just to keep everything kind of neat and out of the way. That's the way I like to do it. And I'll move any wiring here. And we got our filament sensor. We've got our first Z cable here. So the short one will be running to the first Z. And we'll go ahead and plug that one in. And then I will find the second Z cable, which I like to just take, run underneath the printer. Okay, we'll get that second Z plugged in. And here's our X. So I will put the X over there. And then we have here our extruder. So we'll go ahead and plug in the extruder motor. And then we're gonna have our Y which is right here. And then we have our Y end stop, which is going to be actually meant to run this one up and through here, so I can cable manage all this wiring as well. So we'll have our Y end stop sneak through here. And then plug in our Y motor right here. Make sure you plug these in the right way, guys. Don't try to force anything. Then again, I'll run the filament sensor up and through as well. And go ahead and plug that filament sensor in. I'll pull everything nice and neat afterwards. So I'll just turn the printer a little bit here. This is where we are going to take the X and plug in our X motor. All our cabling is neat, yes, perfect. And then the Y. Now, the Y end stop, you don't want this getting pinched in your wheels. So we're gonna go ahead and take a small zip tie here. There's a little provided hole for this. And we will zip tie this down. Again, guys, don't ever over tighten your zip ties against wires, especially on a metal with a corner. You don't want to pinch any of that, so I just like to keep it up and out of the way. It's not going to get pinched in the wheels. Go ahead and cut that off. Then what I like to do, again, push that all the way forward. Give yourself the room. Just double check nothing's going to get pinched when it's moving, like so. And then what I'll do is, now that I have my length, I'm going to take all this cabling and the leftover cable managers. So I only use one for the black tube personally. So I'll get all these cables nice and neat and just pop that in. I'll do all three of them just to keep this cabling in the back and out of the way. Some people put it in the front here. I personally don't like it that way. So this is the way I do it. I'll leave that up to you if you have a better way to manage it. But for now, I just like to kind of manage it all in the outside of the extrusion like so. And then I will take our third one. And you could also, if you wanted to, you could take and, you know, run a zip tie around here as well. Yeah, we'll leave that up to you. I'm not going to do it. And then we'll put the last one in. And I like to bring it right to the bottom here, so it kind of keeps that cabling nice and neat there. We've got this cable up and out of the way, as you can see here. Total free movement now. Nothing's getting pinched, nothing's rubbing. The gantry can move side to side, nice and freely. The next procedure I like to do is I like to get two even sized, whatever you have that's even sized, and I'll put it under each side of the gantry. Then I'll go ahead and I'm gonna lift this gantry up by spinning the Z-rods. And those two blocks there I've got, they're actually out of a print dry. They're the same size, same height. I'm gonna go ahead and screw these up until they meet our X gantry in the middle. That way, if by chance one of these is off a little bit, you can just hold the other one while you turn it into position. I'll show you in just 1 second once we get it up there. So I'll just make sure I slide these underneath, and then you can see it's already off a bit. Okay, there's one. We'll lower that one while holding this one, and then just bring it up so it just touches. Now we have a level bed to our X gantry. So that's that procedure. Next, I'm gonna show you guys what you should do as a first step here. We'll just lower those evenly so we don't take them out of sync, because that BL touch is gonna hit when I turn it on if I don't. Just make sure you do that evenly. We'll go ahead and turn the machine on. We will run a quick little first test here. And she boots up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead, manually heat up the bed to 60. So we'll go ahead and we'll let that heat up. In the meanwhile, we'll go back, settings, leveling. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little sticky note here. Now all you have to do is start bringing the Z down. You've got the plus and the minus. Now you can do this when you start a print as well. It'll have an adjust button. And then where you see leveling mode here, you'll have like Z plus and minus. You can do that if you don't get it perfect here on the paper test. So if you don't get it perfect on the paper test and it's not close enough, don't worry, start a print and then you'll hit adjust and be able to do the Z level. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the bed leveling on. I'm gonna start bringing that Z down until I see it get close to the printer bed. So that's close. I can slip paper under there. I'm gonna go one more, and now that's perfect. And that's it. Just double check, see if I move it up one, I can get the paper under, it just slightly drags. One more down, and it's getting the right amount of drag. So that's all I do. You can go ahead and do the aux leveling and stuff, but I've manually leveled the bed already. I know it's level. I'll just go ahead and exit this. It's set the Z level. And you are actually ready to start printing now. You can go ahead and slice up a file and get your printing underway. I'm just gonna home the printer. Okay guys, so there's our build video on the Ender 5 Plus and Micro Swiss all metal Hotend installation. If you like this video guys, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any ideas on any videos you'd like to do as well, go ahead and leave those down in the comments below. Hope to see you in the next video.